What is going on, guys? Marcus here with the Reformation Woodshop, and this is episode 2 of Table Saw Tuesday. In this episode of Table Saw Tuesday, I am going to be showing you everything it takes to add a router table to your Delta 36725 table saw. I have put this job off for so long because I was terrified that I would make a mistake and ruin my table saw. But recently I was watching a video where someone said I could have fixed all of the mistakes I made in the time I spent not doing the job. That was deep and profound, and it moved me. And I said, let's just go do this. Let's get it done. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do is take your small wing off of the table saw. It's pretty easy. It's just a few bolts on either side and attaching to the cast iron top. Toss that thing out because you'll never use it again. Then you're going to find a piece of wood, particularly something really strong and durable, something that's not going to have too much deflection and wood movement in it. Make sure it fits. I pocket hold a skirt into it on the bottom so that I could use that skirt to put the bolts right back into the table saw wing. To get the max table size out of your right wing, you're going to need a piece of material that is 24.5 by 27 inches. All you have to do is drill an appropriate sized hole into the skirt. Make sure you get a nice snug fit, and it's really important that you make sure everything is level. This is going to be what you're running material over. Your fence still has to run over it back and forth. Put your bolts back in it. Make sure that you put them right where they belong, because if you're anything like me, you forget. So make sure you've kept track of where you're supposed to be putting them. And if you've done everything correct, test it with your fence and make sure it's a flush fit back and forth, and adjust as necessary. You may have to go back in and move your bolts a little bit, micro adjust, and make it perfect. All right, so there we are. Now I'm going to start laying out some lines to figure out what we're taking away to insert the router right in the middle. So all you have to do is cut a recess for this bad boy to sit into. I'm just going to make sure that it's square. That's the only thing. I want to have it accessible from this side because this will be my router table side. So right here seems good, maybe a little further back. Because I'm going to be utilizing my fence with the router sometimes, I use the fence as a reference for square, marked where I'm going to put the lift in, and went to routering and moving material out. You need to make sure that you get your depth right if you are using the Kreg router lift like I'm using. It's really easy. You just set the depth of your bit according to the thickness of the top plate. I've cut the full depth. I haven't chopped this out because it's going to actually be cut all the way down, because the whole housing or body that holds the router is going to set through the table. This is the most annoying sound in the world, but this is one of the coolest tools that exist on the planet. I'm using my oscillating tool to take out the bulk of the material. This was awkward. I'm never doing this again. It fits, it fits, it fits. Okay, now here's the real test. Work! It didn't fit, but it's an easy cleanup. It's better to have not cut enough material away than to cut too much away. So check it again. Oh, baby! All the surfaces are really flush and nice. I love it. There's very specific numbers here, and they go based on what router you have. The Bosch is going to be using the 5 all around to make sure it's centered, but yours might be different, so check that. Once you get your router mounted in, just toss that bad boy back up in the table saw, and you're ready to start trying things out. This router lift is really cool. It has a knob that you utilize on top that you can lift your bit with and lock it in place. Bit is out of the way. Locked in place so it's not coming up, and you can still slide the fence over it. Because I was worried about sag in the router table or in this wing of my table saw, I went ahead and ran some runners right where the router is going to be. That way it'll support the router over time. The last thing for me to do in reference to installing this is just to drive some screws in so that it can stay here forever. Now it is time for its maiden voyage, its first cuts. Let us see how this baby works. Depending on which bit you use, you'll need to pick the throat plate that is most appropriate. Use the tool that Kreg has provided to lock it in place. And of course, it cuts beautifully. This may seem like the end of the video, but it is not. I have one more addition for this tabletop, and then we'll finally be done. I'm gonna be adding a T-track system into the face of the table using these aluminum tracks. This is so that I can use jigs, featherboards, miter gauges, fences, stuff like that. All that kind of stuff to make my life on the router table better. We are in and flush. That was a lot of annoying routing, but everything looks good. I have a feeling that seeing things embedded in the table like the track and the router is pretty intimidating and can feel inaccessible to somebody who's not very experienced, but this was not a difficult process, I promise. I am so very happy to finally have this in my table saw, and I am embarrassed that this router lift sat in a box for months because I was worried about taking the plunge and getting this thing knocked out. If you have this router lift, go to your shop right now, rip the wing out of your table saw and get it mounted in. If you don't, grab it and put it in your table saw, especially if you have a small shop like I do. I know this video seemed fast, and that's because the project was. Do not be intimidated. I promise you, you can do it. Thank you guys for tuning in to Table Saw Tuesday episode 2. In next week's video, I'm gonna be showing you 7 or 8 things that you can make that make the table saw safer and easier to use. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.